Today on Caught for Two, a spoiler-free quick review of Valeria Card Kingdom's Darksworn, the cooperative expansion. You're watching Caught for Two. I'm Jesse. I'm here with Greg.
Thanks for having me on your channel.
And now we're going to talk about Darksworn. But before we talk about the Darksworn cooperative expansion for Card Kingdoms of Valeria, we should talk about how we feel about the base game, because that's going to be an important thing for people to know. What are your thoughts about the base game?
So Valeria kind of lives in this wheelhouse with these other types of games like Machikoro, a little bit like Settlers of Catan, and Space Base, which is the newest most popular version.
What is the mechanic? What do you call that?
The mechanism, I think, is like that. I don't think there's a name for it, but it's roll the dice in the beginning of the phase, and then everybody gains some sort of resource from whatever the dice were. And so, in general, I think this kind of game is not the most exciting for me, but if it's a shorter game, then it can be enjoyable. I think when Machikoro first came out, I think from what I remember, it was like a 20-minute game. And that's, I think, this weight / choices that are available in a game like this, the shorter, the better. And so that's kind of the way I feel. Now, Valeria, I think, tends to outstay its welcome a little bit, but it's fine. I guess that's a long-winded way of saying it's just fine.
Yeah, I mean, so I've played the base game a couple times. We know people who love it. I don't love it, but you've put it in the right family, and all of those games can be quite enjoyable, almost like an activity. There's something fun about, like, it's like pulling a slot machine when you build up your cards and you roll this trick. Oh my God, this triggers, I got 10 of these. It does have a feeling of like, almost like you're getting that dopamine fun from triggering your cards, but I don't feel like it's not the game for me. I don't love it, and there's something about the base action of building this stuff that triggers some bad psychology for me. Yeah. Like, I feel like when I don't roll and doesn't trigger and someone else has a great turn, you start to feel bad. At least I do, and it's not enjoyable.
Yeah, this is a sort of an interesting game in a way, because there's very, very few games that are competitive games that have a module to make it into cooperative. There are a number of games that say on the box you can play competitively or cooperatively, and that usually makes us very leery, very skeptical. But the best example, I think, of this style of a game is Orleans Invasion, which is a phenomenal game. And then they do the same. Now, it's interesting the way that both of those go about creating the cooperative experience and some of the things that they take out and add. So for me personally, getting into more of the review part, the best part of Valeria Card Kingdoms for me is buying the different domains. And when you buy them, those are your victory points, but they usually have some other sort of benefit that you might be like, oh, this is more points, but this will give me an ability for the rest of the game. And it helps you to slightly engine build, not a lot, but it gives you some, at least a path.
You've got some asymmetry at the beginning of the game also, which shifts how you play the game.
Right, and you have some secret goals to go for, which allows you to kind of take a path. Now, this particular game removes the domains, and I think it kind of like, and the secret roles or whatever. And so I think it takes the best part of Valeria and it throws it out the window.
That's really quite an interesting thing to say, because my memory of those domains and the secret goals wasn't that they were playing such a big role, but I think you have a good point that that's a big part. The asymmetry, the breaking, and having different people go for different things. Here you sort of almost have to force yourself to play differently than the other player. Otherwise, you both might bulk up. So they lost one of the things you enjoyed the most. Okay. I want to say, before we talk about all the things we didn't like about this, it is important to say that we are not fans of Valeria Card Kingdoms, and that taints our view of this. From my standpoint, I had a sort of mixed reaction to this. It does feel like it works to me. Like, it's almost surprising that they've taken this competitive game. It feels like it worked. There's a little bit of a clock. It feels like a natural cooperative game, and mechanically it works, and it was sort of enjoyable until you get to some of the things about length of time, whatever. But I did enjoy. It's a campaign, we should say. We've played half of the campaign.
There's six modules, and we played 3 of them.
And that's, leaving aside how well it's implemented, it is fun to go through a campaign and be like, okay, we did it, we finished it. And I did enjoy the sort of surprise. It's a little bit like Old Tree in that you discover stuff as you go through it. If you lost, you could play it again. It feels like it mechanically works. It's just, as a total experience, it misfires. And maybe we can start talking about where it starts to misfire for us.
Yeah, I think that, you would mention a couple of things, length of time and what we would do each pick on a roll. And I think there's 2 things that kind of wrap together a little bit. And one of them is that I don't have any sense of teamwork in this game at all. On your turn, you sort of do what you're going to do, and then you see what the dice roll and see what the next turn is going to be. The only thing that you can do really to help your teammate is to share resources. And when you do that, you share, 10 and the other person gets 5. And we did that. We did not do that in games 1,
We did
2,
it once
and the end
in
of
3
game 3.
games. Yeah.
And so, to me, there's very little teamwork, and there's very few options that I like in a game in general. I feel like there's no engine building, which is what I like. There's no real reason to get. You can't say well, I'm going to get this character and this character so that they feed off each other. There's almost no synergy between the characters.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's no real reason to get one over the other. Now, that would all be kind of fine if the game was pretty short. But I think this game, like we played the last game, was 2 hours. And I think that maybe this game lives best in a 30-minute mark, which is a pretty significant difference.
Well, you're absolutely right. Oh, there are a lot of sins here, and a short game can wash away a lot of sins. But a 2-hour game where it feels like the outcome is mostly random really hurts. And you say engine building, it's weird because you are bulking up, you are getting stronger, but it feels like it's the roll of the dice. If you buy all 6s and you roll 6s, you're having a great game, your engine's working great. None of the cards work together, as you say. And we played this game, we took a break for a couple weeks and played another one, and we were like, the rules are the worst rules I've ever seen in a board game. There's 3 booklets of rules. Every single booklet is worse than the last, and they are the worst board game rules. They're just walls of text, missing stuff. We hit a card that was obviously needed an explanation. There was no way we were going to find an explanation for it.
Yeah, I know you already kind of said this, but I kind of want to just reinforce it. It's very dense, the rule book, and you have the rule book, you have the rule book for the expansion, then you have the cards for that scenario, and then you have another little booklet
that overrides the cards and contradicts them.
And then there were some things where there was a different rule in a couple different spots, and then those things missing. And then it's possible we could have found a couple things we were looking for, but I'm not searching through 4 rule books looking for and cards and things, especially for this weight of game. I just felt like that balance wasn't there for me.
Yeah, that's the thing that's also odd. It's that it's a low complexity, low weight game, but there are all these little symbols and weird things. And the way the cooperative expansion works is it keeps modifying rules. And this modifies this rule, and then this chapter modifies this rule in the tiniest fonts. It's so easy to forget some little thing, and finding information. That was not fun to do.
Yeah, I do want to mention one thing that I didn't before in kind of the more positive column. I do think it was an interesting and really good way to convert this game into a cooperative experience. Again, taking away the fact that it removed the more interesting part of the game and the domains and the special roles. But there is kind of a cool tug of war that happens when you want to buy more citizens to bulk up, as Jesse always says. But when they disappear as part of the clock of the villain deck kind of going through and removing the citizens, if you buy more, the more citizens you buy, the less there are to be removed, and then when there's no more to choose from, you would lose the game. And that's one thing I kind of thought was kind of
I mean, we've complained about when we were playing this about the lack of interesting decisions, but there are some interesting tactical decisions. You've got these dice that give you stuff, but also trigger what monsters attack. So you're thinking, okay, well, is this the time to attack this monster? Can we sacrifice this? That actually works pretty well. On the other hand, of the 3 games we played, I felt like if we got lucky in our rolls, we would have rolled over it. Yeah, and if we got unlucky, we have a harder time. So it felt like a lot of it, like our choices changed how it would unfold, but winning or losing was not down to making great decisions.
Before we get to our final thoughts, I just want to mention one last thing, and that is, it is part of a campaign. There's 6 things. So there is a lot of opportunity there to add in additional rules, give the players benefits and different things. And I felt like going from game 1 to game 2, there was almost no change. Going from 2 to 3, very small change. 3, so they really, I think, missed by not allowing you to really taking advantage of the fact that it was this campaign system, because it really felt very much not like a campaign. And I think you kind of get pushed to each one regardless. You did well, you did poorly, doesn't really matter. The end result is the same.
Yeah, it's a little thin. Yeah. All right, let me give you my final thoughts here on this. It does mechanically work. We're very skeptical anytime we see a cooperative expansion for a game that was built as a competitive game. And I do feel like it works here, and that we're the wrong audience for this, not being fans of the base game of Valeria. If I had to rate this, for me personally, this is going to be very low down, probably a 4. But I think maybe I'd guess if someone really likes Card Kingdoms of Valeria and likes cooperative games, this could be quite a bit higher. Definitely give it a try, but doesn't work for me.
Okay, this expansion for Valeria is a serviceable, workable implementation. However, I think it's way outstays its welcome. It's way too long for the amount of choices that you have, which are not that many. It lacks some teamwork, and the campaign, I don't have any interest. We've got halfway through, and I'm really not that interested in completing it, and it's not that compelling, unfortunately. I think I'd rather play regular Valeria, and even that, fine. I think if you really are in love with Valeria, this is an interesting, different scenario to say of a way to play it. But yeah, this is not one that I'm going to reach for, and as I said, I don't really want to continue it. So I'm going to give this, probably right with Jesse, I'm going to give it a 4, because I don't think it's a bad game. It's just not good. Maybe.
And you've got so many other choices. Why would you pick a game with such a horrible rule book that way overstays its welcome?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I'd rather reach for something else on the shelf.
Agreed.
So you can also watch, we do have a playthrough of this on the channel with a very exciting midpoint, but we're not going to have our normal long discussion on there.
Yeah. If you like this video and want to see more, consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel. If you like movies or wargaming, Greg has another channel you might check out.
See the links below.
And we'll see you next time.
Okay, so this version for me is a workable implementation. You can't. Now you're fucking with me.